Hello, and welcome back to Braver New World, a podcast about the stories we need to tell for the future we want to see. I am your host, Nathan Young. I'm recording this intro today outside on this beautiful late winter day in San Diego, so hopefully this intro comes out okay. So today's conversation is with Mr. Brandon Peele. He is a facilitator, an author, an expert on purpose, and his work focuses on leadership and helping people connect with a deeper sense of purpose in their lives and institutions. And in this episode, Brandon and I explore a pretty big and somewhat unusual question. What would it mean to heal the soul of a nation? Brandon is working on two very interesting and ambitious projects. First project is a natural pilgrimage, which will be a group journey all through some very important historical and cultural sites related to the history of America. And the second is the Mother's Constitutional Convention, which is sort of a rethinking of the Constitutional Convention that was at the founding of this country, imagining what like a renewed vision for the country might look like if mothers were set to write that document. So just to kind of frame that too, we talk a little bit about Brandon's background, what got him into this work that he's doing now. We talk about purpose, democracy, history, identity, and this tension. There's a recurring theme on this podcast, the tension that a lot of us deal with when we're trying to navigate purpose and capitalism and where those two connect and where those two diverge and how we manage that in our lives. Whether you agree when it comes up with this conversation or not, I think this is the kind of conversation that really invites you into a deeper reflection and the role that we all play shaping the future of our communities and our countries and what it would mean to like step into that role for ourselves and maybe even like take some initiative in creating that role. So I hope you enjoy our conversation. It's actually going to be in like a room, not outside. So without any further ado, here's Mr. Brandon Peele. Brandon, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Nathan. Good to be with you.
All right. So real quick, I know you, but introduce yourself to the people that are listening so we know who you are.
I'm a Virgo. I like long walks on the beach.
Aw.
So I'm Brandon, originally from the Midwest, lived in California for the last 20 years, and I am passionate about soul, purpose in all kind of shapes and sizes. So basically a lover of life. And as we'll explore today, my current mission is to heal the soul of our nation. And so that's where I spend a lot of my time. I write books on that, lead workshops, keynotes, that sort of stuff. And then my day job is facilitating executive circles. So basically caring for all the people who are like in the meat grinder of capitalism and modernity and trying to help them bring their most cherished virtues and purpose into the fold so that whatever is next is much more kind.
Okay, cool. So you hit on something that I think about a lot, and it comes up a lot too, is that intersection of these kind of big purpose ideas and like healing the soul of a nation with capitalism and people in these sort of executive positions and how that overlaps. I mean, does that overlap smoothly for you, or is that like a point of tension in one job or the other?
It overlaps mostly smoothly for me. Part of being awake and alive at this time is like, we need people who are calling balls and strikes. Be like, This is cruel. This is unjust. This is illegal. This is exploitation. This is another example of racism, oppression, all that kind of stuff. Well, as a facilitator, I'm not supposed to bring myself into anything I'm facilitating. It's like just following what needs to happen and just summoning that. And I'm still a human being. And so it does create moral dissonance for me, because when I hear about somebody who's doing insider trading, which I do, when I hear about people who have contracts with ICE to build ethnic cleansing detention centers, which I do, when I hear about all this stuff, like I hurt. It takes something out of me. And so after something like that, I have to deal with that pain. But it's much better for me to come from a place of like, let's explore that versus like, you're killing all that's sacred. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, right? Knowing you as I do, I can't imagine that you're just doing nothing about it. And you talk about healing the soul of the nation. So what's that about? Because that's, I love grandiosity, but that sounds very grand. So what's it about?
Well, I mean, I think it's the same thing as the Braver New World. We know this whole thing doesn't work. None of it works. Like our lives don't work. Our marriages don't work. Our communities don't work. Every sector of society is upside down. And so I honor you for teasing these conversations out. And where I'm focused right now is the soul of the United States. If you've graduated high school, you know that we founded on Native genocide and slavery. And
that didn't come up in a lot of people's high school, but go on.
It was at least a paragraph.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a paragraph on slavery and a paragraph on
Some of us did dioramas of the slavery.
Yeah.
And Native genocides.
I know. Like, I think for maybe third or fourth grade book report, I dressed up as Christopher Columbus and delivered a whole thing on it. I mean, there's obviously a lot more of the glorifying the oppressor stuff, but
Yeah.
all this is to say that we have this massive contradiction, which everyone knows. We've got this deeply unjust political economy and culture, and these super enlightened ideals, like this singular purpose to create all of us equally, to give us all the rights, like rights of passage, human rights, resources, relationships, so that we can fulfill life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And it seems like every day the distance between those ideals and our lived experience is greater. And so all this is to say we have a beautiful purpose as a nation, but we're not living it. And so my charter at this moment is to bring people into that conversation and to start to imagine what would actually be like to live our purpose. So that's what Bison Medicine was about. That's what this national pilgrimage is about, this Mother's Constitutional Convention. That's what all this stuff is about. Let's actually fulfill on what we said we were going to do.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, the pilgrimage and the convention and Bison Medicine. I'd be curious to can we start with Bison Medicine, just like a real quick what that is, and to get into the pilgrimage and the Mother's Convention also, just so we can hear what that's about.
Yeah. I mean, it's all the same. It's all the same stuff. It's just like,
just trying to give people context and some places to kind of pin these stories together.
Yeah, it's like Procter and Gamble. I'm just selling soap and just putting it in this container for this need and this,
But you're selling purpose.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, but purpose and also pain, because we'd all be living our purpose if there wasn't a ton of pain to go through. And so, Bison Medicine is essentially, well, it's a book, but it's essentially like a love letter to the American people, saying we have all this beauty, we have all this pain. Let's look at it. And then let's summon our purpose as well as the guidance that our national mammal has for us to fulfill it. Most folks don't know we have a national mammal. It's kind of a new thing. It actually, the Bison National Legacy Act turns 10 years old in May.
Oh, wow.
And I'll be going out to the Pine Ridge Reservation for a commemoration there with hopefully a bunch of folks, native elders. The contrast between, say, our national bird and the bison are profound. Right? I mean, obviously they're two totally different animals. They're all beautiful and perfect, whole and normal. Like there's nothing good or bad about any of them. But as symbols to guide human behavior or as symbols of our purpose, they have different teachings. Eagle lives in this protected perch way up high, swoops down to hunt, steal, scavenge, exploit, literally, it'll take fish from other birds after they did all the hard work. Like, hey, give me that.
Quite the metaphor.
I know. I mean, they're also called sky rats by folks in the Pacific Northwest because they just like are hanging out in dumpsters all day, just eating like whatever garbage is on the ground. But again, there's nothing wrong with the eagle, nothing wrong with any raptor.
Yeah.
But as a symbol for a nation, that it's quite a interesting teaching because then it takes this whatever it scavenges from the forest floor back to the nest for the enjoyment of its kin and kin alone, and very far away from the consequences of its actions. And just like the distribution of power and wealth in the United States, it's white on top, brown on bottom. Curious, very curious symbol. And with the gold beak too. I mean, it's just like, you can't make this stuff up.
The metaphor is just hitting on every level there.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, God, I could go on and on how great they are and how they their mating rituals and how they have to like break their own beaks off to survive. And there's all this beauty of the eagle. And I'll swing back to it again because the eagle and bison have something really important in common. But the bison, on the other hand, are maternal. They are a herd species. They have all of these kind of what we would call pro-social characteristics, if we're going to anthropomorphize them a little bit. They put the oldest, youngest, and weakest in the center of the herd. They are courageous. They run into the storm to get through it faster and minimize suffering for themselves, especially the most vulnerable. Which is a great metaphor for what we need to do as a nation, like to face our trauma, our work, and actually deal with it and repair it. They are playful, or independent, they're regenerative, and this, especially given this climate catastrophe, which we haven't heard much about over the last year, but it's still happening, still getting worse. Everywhere the bison roam, they leave the place better than they found it. So through their wallowing, their stampeding, their nose for water, they know like where water is, and they'll just keep digging the ground, and up will come a spring, and then you have insects, birds, reptiles, rodents, all that kind of good stuff. At one point, the United States or Turtle Island was covered with millions of these bison wallows, and they would take a 3,000-pound animal, and you just have it like continually compact dirt. What's going to happen? It's going to be a perfect pond, lake. And so what did we do? We went through and plowed it all over. Like, no,
Wow.
can't have that.
Mm-hmm.
And the result was the Dust Bowl. Basically,
Yeah.
like all of like the central and south United States was just blown away. Tons and tons, meters of topsoil just blown away because of that. All this to say, where the bison roam, everyone prospers. Oh, I should also share that they're very inclusive. So they'll share close space with other large animals like deer, antelope, although they do get into tangles with bear every now and again. So I'll just say that the bison I judge, and that's what the book is about, it's a much better symbol for us to follow, especially if we're committed to equality, life, liberty, flourishing, happiness, justice.
So one thing I'm intrigued about this is a lot of us that do this sort of kind of facilitator work, you're just thinking on a bigger level than a lot of us are too. Like a lot of us we're kind of working with individuals, we're working with teams or an organization. You're like on the national level working on this. I'm wondering, was it foolishness or confidence that like this is where you decided to go? And
no, neither. I mean, it's definitely foolish from a modernist perspective. It's, it's like, you got to do what you got to do. So for me, I had the fortune of seeing George Floyd's murder like the day after it happened, like that video.
Yeah.
And that, it laid me out for like a week, but also like just kind of clicked a bunch of stuff into place for myself personally. This whole place has this beautiful purpose, and we're doing everything we can to not live it. I mean, outside of what we're doing at the household level, which is like basically communist, like to each according to their means, to each according to their needs. Like we're trying to give everyone all the resources and care that we want. But as soon as we step out of the house, we're like everyone for themselves, get away with it as much as you can without getting caught, kind of thing. So that's what that moment kind of descended me into the purpose of the United States. And I was like, wow, this actually completes something for me, because I think I've maybe shared pieces of this with you before, but not feeling at home anywhere, not in San Diego, not in Chicago where I'm from, or New York, or even the Bay Area. And it's because this whole place is my home, and there's untold horror happening every day. And so it's like, whoa, I just realized I have rooms in my house that are like full of terrible things. I can't ignore that anymore. And so there's whatever you want to call it, a summons, a call. But I was like, well, not me, who? Right.
Yeah, totally. You're bringing up interesting thoughts for me too, because I'm just sort of thinking about what are my thoughts about this nation and what is my relationship with it. On some level, it's something I think about. I think about it, obviously, but I also sort of see myself as like just this person in this, not necessarily connected to it or a part of it. But I remember growing up, I very much like had a like, yeah, America. I really appreciated it. Even if I had some kind of progressive values, I was really intrigued by the idea of like the founding fathers and the enlightened way that they put this constitution together. And I sort of knew that juxtaposed against where they came from, where, most of Europe was monarchies and there wasn't anything quite like this happening. And they borrowed a lot of stuff from like history and ancient Greece to make this system. And I remember reading like the Federalist Papers as a history major and thought all those were so interesting, how much they were digging into all the different contingencies of what possibly could happen in this republic as they're building it, and just the sort of emergence of it through the Articles of the Confederation, the Civil War. So I was just like, thought all of it was so interesting and so enlightened. And obviously, like, as we've learned more about history or took in more of like the actual real history, there's much more holes in that than what we learned in school. But I think there still is like a very valuable set of ideas there of like how they did just approach building this nation differently. And we've all benefited from that to some degree, some more than others, obviously. So what I'm sitting with now is just this interest that you're like thinking about your role as far as trying to create something better here. I'm wondering what has you inspired on that, thinking of the national soul as opposed to just trying to help whoever you can help.
Well, I think they're one and the same. I don't want to let you off the hook, because you are answering that call whether you explicitly, consciously know it or not. Like this podcast, your work, I've just been following you and been seeing like what you've been sharing. You're thinking deeply and sharing that, and especially given your complexion, your stature, your anatomy, we need we need examples of good men who have all the privilege and are spending it wisely. So, brother, you're doing it.
Thank you. Well, actually, so let me ask you this question then. This is a question I've been sitting with a lot lately too. And as I watch just the news in the world and think about how do we identify, how do you identify Like as a person, what identities do you take on for yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, where I'm at right now, like my emerging edges is exploring goddess, divine feminine, sacred mother, and who I am in relationship to that as a protector, as a servant, as a steward. Because the beauty of the privilege that I have had and is that like I've had so much of the existing off the shelf fun. I've been married twice. I've traveled. I went to college, been to 49 of the 50 states, most of the national parks. I mean, there's like not that much in this kind of carnal temporal realm that I'm like, oh, I got a bucket list. I got to get after. I'm not really there. Like, so for me, it's like, I feel the only reason I'm alive, because it's not, to procreate. I've got a vasectomy. I'm not married, all that kind of stuff. Like it is to serve. Like that's it. And it doesn't mean that I don't have a good time. I still, sing karaoke, I have a scotch, I, see friends and all that kind of stuff. But so I identify primarily as like somebody who's at or past the midlife point, and how do I best use these gifts to help humanity? And so as a straight white American male from the Midwest, grow where you're planted, like be right here and like help shape this next chapter of the United States. So that's kind of, I identify as my purpose.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. When I thought about this for myself, I just sort of, the conclusion I came to for myself was sort of identifying as a citizen of the world. I didn't get quite as deep as you went there, but I thought it was, because I thought it was so interesting the way people identify as like Republican or Democrat or conservative or with their national identities or their religious identities and, and how that sets up these sort of us versus them dynamics also, right? The other thing I'm curious to know is, have you always kind of been this way, or like you talked about that awakening with George Floyd, but were there other awakenings, or have you kind of gradually gotten to this? Or
there's a couple jumping off points, but like I think in some sense my story is not different than any other American Caucasian male story. And that like I was a beautiful soul who was born to experience joy and to help and serve others, and then got indoctrinated and enculturated. Yeah, bam, 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 bam. And until I fit the shape that basically my parents wanted me in, which was like scholar, athlete type person. So I had to suppress all this creative, emotional, sensual, feminine aspects of myself and just let it go. And it seemed to be working all right, meaning like I had completely capitulated to the toxic masculine frame.
Yeah.
I was doing tons of drugs. I was successful in my career, sleeping around, traveling. It was like I was the poster child. And luckily, in my late 20s, I had the opportunity to do some inner work. So it began with a course in business school, and it was just, one personal development exercise after another. Lots of great books, weekend intensive. And I left that program at like, I guess maybe it was 28, 27. I don't know anything. Not even like the Socrates level. I know nothing about anything that matters. I don't know myself. I don't know anything about any field that would create context or wisdom. I didn't know psychology, philosophy, comparative religion, mysticism, poetry, nothing. I knew nothing that mattered. I just knew to Excel, PowerPoint, and how to party, and that was it. And so for me, I was like, here I am graduating with 200 grand and graduate debt. I'm definitely not going to climb any of these ladders that are in front of me. I'm going to move to the Bay Area. Basically, just threw myself into personal spiritual development work. And then about 7 years into that, purpose work, and then got certified in that body and wrote books on that subject and led programs and trained people and aggregated research. And it was just like purpose, all up until 2020. And I was like, oh, national purpose is kind of a big deal. Because if we were committed to that, we'd be doing everything differently.
Yeah. Well, so tell us about purpose then. Like, what does purpose mean, and why is it so important?
I was just having a great conversation about this with someone in Tennessee the other day. There's lots of sources of meaning. I mean, we are kind of wired for meaning, whether we're watching TV or whether we're judging ourselves or others. We're always making meaning. You can't get away from it. And so I have a lot of empathy for atheists and agnostics, like that they're just like, I want to make all this meaning, but I can't make any meaning. I want to make all this meaning, but I can't make any meaning.
I don't know if it's quite like that, but keep going.
So purpose is a unique type of meaning because it is, in some sense, it's a developmental stage. Because you can really only get to it through work and after a certain amount of biological development. So you generally need a well-developed neocortex that's like late 20s at the earliest to really begin to work. And what I mean by developmental stage is that when it comes online and the work is complete, there's like an integrated ego soul, or like the part of you that knows your operating instructions and the part of you that executes them, your ego parts. There's this ego soul marriage. And that's like basically a sovereign, someone who knows themselves, knows their gifts, knows what they care about, what breaks their heart, has, psychic integrity because they've gotten to know all those inner parts like critic, skeptic, image consultant, wounded child, a risk manager. And they can advocate for themselves. And so that is essentially a psychologically developed adult, someone who has done that work. From that place, that person can go on to other things like leadership and eldership and that sort of stuff. But without that, we're making meaning from the institutions that have a vested interest in us, whether it's usually not good. Like if it was good, they'd be helping us become adults. They'd be helping us discover our purpose, integrate our parts, all that kind of stuff. But they're essentially using us for their ends. So in that sense, it's liberation. And that's like when I first did it or completed my first purpose journey in 2012, I was like, this is a civil right. If we don't give this to everybody, we don't have adults. And you don't have a democracy without adults. You don't have consent. You don't have sexual consent. Think about that. How many marriages are operating without consent?
What do you mean that like they're not sort of fully formed adults in a way that they're looking at all their options and making informed choices? And
well, they don't know themselves. So they can't say, I want this person. I want to procreate with this person. I want to invite everyone I know to watch me say yes to this person. It's like watching, you see kids do it. Like a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old would be like, we're having a wedding ceremony. That's how I feel when I see a marriage, when somebody hasn't done the requisite inner work. I'm like, this is so bizarre. Why are we here?
Are you speaking from experience here too at all?
Well, yeah. Well, my first marriage was definitely not one from purpose. My second one was.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I guess I never thought of it on that level either. I think my own sort of purpose work, I probably haven't done it nearly as deep as you have. I do that Simon Sinek Find Your Why. And I thought that was really helpful for me just to kind of do the exercise of getting it down on paper and like pulling out my stories and seeing the trends and putting them together. And what came out of it for me was that, it kind of helped me see that I'd been working towards that my whole life in very haphazard, start, stop, go in different directions kind of ways, but it had always kind of been there. And so I guess I'm a little like, there's a piece where I'm maybe a little skeptical or feel like maybe people deserve a little bit more credit than you're giving them there. Or maybe, I don't know, or maybe there's something I don't understand, or maybe I'm missing something there too.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying folks are going into it without an awareness of the institution.
Yeah.
Or not having any self-awareness. But I mean, the institution itself, right? It is entirely a product of the patriarchy to suppress and control women. Like, that anybody today would choose that. Just means they don't
also like
they don't know
property.
About it. Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily like, I'm not giving it credit.
I mean, yeah, managed property, but the truth is, having been in houses, like property manages you. It is full of commitments that are like designed to keep you heads down. There's this great line from Reacher. He's like, homeownership is like owning a snake. It's cool if you're into that sort of thing.
But it'll strangle you in your sleep if you're not careful.
Well, there's that, but it's just like it is such a pervasive desire, goal, reality for people, and I don't think anyone's really thought it through.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so kind of what I'm hearing you say though, then is there's a little bit of, and when I did the new narrative thing, that was part of where I was coming from, was we got the script, which was go to college, get married, buy a house, have kids, go to church on Sundays, get a dog, just kind of keep doing that for 50 years till you retire, and then go on cruises. And like, that's the life you're supposed to live. And kind of coming to terms of, well, I actually don't want that. I never wanted that. That wasn't what I wanted at all. And then also like, I'm like a white male. That was made for me. And then to think of,
by you,
yeah, but well, I didn't have, personally not, but yes, institutions in my patrilineage were involved in that. Yes. But the thing of, at the time when I started the new narrative, even gay people getting married was pretty new. So that wasn't always an option. People of color didn't have the same economic and social opportunities like buy the house or get the job and all of that. So I guess that's part of what I'm hearing there too. So it's almost this sort of an uncritical approach to life of just following that script unless you work on your individual purpose. And maybe your purpose comes back and says, no, the script The script is your purpose, but theoretically, it's something else, something bigger, right?
Well, it's not. I mean, not everyone needs to have this like world-changing, like scale type purpose, and that too is, or at least that lens is very much like a patriarchal, like power over lens, to be like a big person in the world. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Like purpose. It liberates you from dependency on that script. You can choose pieces of it that work for you. So, for example, like committed partnership is something that works for me, but I don't feel the need to get the state of California involved. Road traffic signs are like suggestions in my world. Like I'm just like, I'll just like whatever. It's all made up. Like
doing California stops.
Yeah, or if I'm on an e-bike, just no stop.
So here's something that comes up a lot, though, too. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, too, because with other people I've been talking to for this podcast, one of the things that comes up is we are talking about purpose a lot in different ways in our own expressions and understanding of it. But one of the tensions is that a lot of times our purpose doesn't line up with like capitalism very well. We have to get really sort of creative about how we make it work, or it might just not work. We have to do something against our purpose to afford a roof over our head and podcast microphones and computers and all that stuff. I mean, how do you see that, or what's that? How is that tension for you?
Yeah, I mean, that I would say that capitalism and the fear of pain are the two things that keep people from answering the call and filling their purpose. For the most part, I've tried to minimize my entanglements. So rent cheaply, do yoga, play music, stay out of restaurants and bars, and I live quite simply. Basically, I just moved 2 days ago, and I've got books, bikes, and tools. I don't need or want anything more than that. So there's a simplicity part of it that then liberates me to have, let's say, I'm only working 10, 15 hours a week doing facilitation. The rest of the time, I get to read and write, talk to people like you, and plan this good trouble for the summer. So if you can get out of the consumerist societal trap of keeping up with the Joneses and getting so-and-so into travel soccer and all that kind of shit, like you're going to have immeasurably more freedom and happiness.
As much as I love doing this podcast, sad truth of it all is that doesn't pay the bills. It actually costs me money to make this podcast. But that's okay. I love doing it, so we're doing it. What does pay the bills for me is I help individuals and organizations leverage the power of storytelling for leadership and persuasion. This is the work I do, and I want to tell you about it real quick here. For organizations, a lot of times the work is very much focused on fundraising for nonprofits, or developing a narrative strategy for the important messages that they want to get out in their campaigns. It can also be about developing leadership and communication skills amongst the team that you've already got working within your organization. For individuals, a lot of my work revolves around helping develop a narrative-based communication approach for those high-leverage career moments that come up from time to time, like giving a public talk, interviewing for a new position, integrating into a new role at a new company, or making the leap for yourself to jump into entrepreneurship, and how you talk about the work that you do with the external audiences there too. These are very much the moments that can have a huge impact on your career. And by utilizing storytelling and narrative, you can not only communicate a more resonant message about what it is you're doing, but also one that's going to stick. So if this is intriguing to you and you want to know more, you can check out my website, storycultureconsulting.com. I'll have a free tool on there that's available for download, or you can check out the show notes too. I'll have the same tool down there that you can grab too. Once again, that's storycultureconsulting.com. And now back to the show. So then, yeah, tell me about your summer plans then here. Because that was what we originally were going to talk about. Sorry, I just wanted to get all this other stuff too.
It's all good, man.
Yes, tell us about your summer plans, because it sounded like super interesting and quite ambitious.
In some sense, it is. It could be ambitious. I mean, it's scoped that way, but it could also be very humble. It could just be a guy on a road trip. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen. So I'll just share a quick story. So in February of last year, I was like, it just hit me. It was right after the inauguration. I'm like, oh no, we turn 250 next year and Trump's going to be president. Like, yeah, this is going to go terribly. And like within a month, he had announced like a UFC fight on the South Lawn for July 4th. And like, it's going to be like, pew, pew, look at my truck, my guns, that stuff normally doesn't bother me because it's, it's America. You got to love all of it. But I'm like, this is kind of a big deal. And we need something much more honest and humble and reverent and hopeful than this. So I pinged this group of folks. I did this fellowship with Citizen University up in Seattle, and I pinged this group of folks. I'm like, hey, what are we going to do about this? We got to do something that's not the official party line for the 4th. And my friend Anita answered. So we had a number of conversations, moved through a bunch of different concepts. Basically, where we have settled is to do this national pilgrimage. Pilgrimages generally tend to be spiritual, personal in nature. So like think of the Camino de Santiago or going to the Himalayas, all that kind of stuff. Whereas this is like, we are a nation with a singular purpose to create all of us equal. We're not doing that. How can we be in these big questions together? What do we owe each other? What is our purpose? How might we better fulfill it? And so given the United States and the development of its soul and shadows and trauma and pain, it's like, well, there's a lot of critical acupuncture points throughout the nation that are important to spend time with and see what the teachings of the land and the people are for us. So we're basically starting in Philly, June 11th, going down through Harper's Ferry, Birmingham, Montgomery, Selma, all the way down to Galveston for Juneteenth, and then way up to Wyoming to the Bears Butte for the Seven Councils fire on the solstice, so June 21st, 2nd-ish. And then over to Greasy Grass for the 150th anniversary of the Battle of Little Bighorn, which is a huge symbol for Indigenous people. When that news hit the wire, a week or two later, it just happened to be like July 4th. And it was like this big national reckoning. Of course, Yellowstone, which I'm very excited for because this is the first time that Yellowstone's 4 herds have merged into one, which feels
the
prophetic.
4 bison herds.
4 bison herds have merged into one. So there's related prophecies of like the white, black, yellow, and red nations coming together. There's like kind of rainbow warrior prophecy. And so I don't know, it could be a big nothing. It could be beautiful. I don't know. And then from there down to back to Pine Ridge, where we'll meet with local elders there, probably do a lodge ceremony, and then up to Minneapolis for vigils for Flannel Castile, George Floyd, Alex Preddy, Renee Good, and then down to Chicago for the July 4th. Now, I want to share a little bit about Chicago and why I feel like this is where the nation's attention needs to be. Massive resistance against ISIS ethnic cleansing level in the state, county, city levels. Chicago is incredibly diverse, historically very segregated, but less and less so. And especially in light of the last year's events, they're like, Chicago's strong. I feel like the only reason the Bears got as far in the playoffs is because Chicago was like, come on, Chicago.
They're just feeding off the energy.
Yeah. But it'll also be just a couple months after the Obama Presidential Library opens. So we'll marinate in Chicago for a few days and then down to Cincinnati for the Underground Railroad Museum, which is supposed to be amazing. Have you not yet been there? Serpent Mound, Seneca Falls for the these 2 important women's rights museums, and then 2 Haudenosaunee Iroquois cultural sites, one in Onondaga, I believe another one's Saratoga Springs, and then Lexington, Concord, the Statue of Liberty, and then back to Philadelphia. And in Philly is where we have the Mothers Constitutional Convention. And so we all know who was in the room for the first one, right? There weren't any moms. There weren't any people who were initiated in the mysteries of life and death, who bleed regularly, who know what it's like to lose a child or have a miscarriage, who know what it takes to keep one alive. And so my hope, my want is that some deep maternal wisdom surfaces there, and we leave that 3-day experience with a constitutional framework that actually fulfills the purpose of the United States and makes it a place where people want to become mothers, where people want to be born, where they want to elder, as opposed to what we have now, which is chaos.
Yeah. What do you hope to do with that new document then? Are you going to try and get ratified and Trump will sign it and we'll change everything from there?
Well, I think what's important to realize is that our Constitution is nullified. We don't technically it's there. We still have a Supreme Court that tries to interpret it, but the covenant, the contract is broken. 2014, some researchers out of Princeton, Gillis and Page said like the United States is an oligarchy. It's like basically, as Chris Hedges says, it's an oligarchy with voting rituals. So it has been gone for a long time. The democracy, representative democracy has been gone. So whether or not, or I should say, when the American people wake up to that, they're going to want to be like, oh, wow, okay, so we can be like every other grown-up democracy and write a new constitution, which they all did. We're the only ones that haven't.
Yeah, we got the oldest one too.
Like the oldest rickety thing that,
it's the one that's most due for an update, and it was written without other ones for context.
I mean, it is. Yeah, I mean, it's like we were all using Microsoft Word and the mail. Basically,
we're still on Blackberries.
So the idea is that eventually Americans are going to keep waking up to this. I've already joined the general strike and the tax strike. I think a lot of folks, there's already like 1 million+ folks who are not going to pay their taxes this year. because folks
Cool.
are realizing.
I just haven't gotten around to it, so I guess I'm doing it too. Cool.
But they're realizing it's broken. Like, I do not want to pay for genocide. I do not want to pay for ethnic cleansing. I want healthcare. I want this to be a safe place. I want to have a job. I want living wages. So my sense is that, or my hope is that, like, I'm kind of like casting a lure into the future, saying, like, I think America is going to be ready for a new vision to step into. And it's not for me to say, I've already rewritten the Constitution and the Declaration based on what I know, but that's not a democracy. You need debate by like women to like say, this is actually how it should work. So like, let's say everything goes to plan. We've got this beautiful thing. The next step would not be to go to Congress because they're so dysfunctional. You'd have to go state by state. And that is for somebody who's smarter and wiser and more politic than I am to get past.
Yeah. But so kind of what I'm hearing there is like, I think it's amazing. And it's just so important. Just have these conversations with whoever is going to have them with us, because I mean, same kind of concept here, like all this stuff we're going through right now, there's going to be an after, and whatever that after is going to be, we have some influence right now. And if we don't use it, we're not going to have it. We're just going to be stuck with whatever shows up later. And yeah, you never know kind of how these things start and where they go and what they're going to write about in the history books years later also, right? Like did the Seneca Falls Convention or whatever, did they think they were going to be in history books later, or Selma or any of those things?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know if folks did any of that with a view towards being in the history books. I think they just did it from the same place that everybody who's fighting for justice, equality, freedom. We need more justice, equality, and freedom. And it's not just the few folks you read about. There's like, for everyone you read about, there's 10,000 others.
Yes, exactly. All kinds of protests and conventions and groups that like were doing stuff, and it fed into the ones we heard about, but we just never heard about those.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, I mean, that sounds amazing. And so very much sounds like you're doing a road trip through America, hitting off certain points that are like important for the historical narrative that we have about how this country came to be. And coming back for the Mothers Constitutional Convention. Is that going to be like facilitated by like all mothers? Like sounds like you're hoping you're going to be in the room. Is that like, that's by the rules? And
yeah. So I already have someone in mind. I'm going to speak with her tomorrow. She's an excellent facilitator and a mother, and somebody who's lost people close to her. So she's also initiated into the mysteries of life and death. And yeah, I want there to be a bunch of folks like me and you, accomplices who are they're supporting it. Like maybe we're working in the kitchen, making them snacks. Maybe we're just in the grandstands, like watching. But it's really not for us to say. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have a say in anything, but this is just an experiment to see like, can moms come up with something that's beautiful and elegant and fulfills our purpose, which we all know, yes. But I think for a lot of folks, they'd be like, that thought feels really exclusive. I'm like, so what? So was the first one. Let's have a Black Constitutional Convention. Let's have an Indigenous one. Let's have a trans one. We can do all this. There's no rule against it. And hopefully we all learn and grow from these experiences, and that we end up as a people finding something that 2/3 of us want to ratify.
Yeah. And you've got like co-conspirators in this, right? Can you share anything about them? Or so yeah, can you tell us about who your co-conspirators are?
Sure. 330 million Americans who want this country to work. But it's me and 3 friends. So my friend Anita in South Carolina, she's worked in all sorts of nonprofits, helping folks get the resources they need to live great lives. My friend Jamie Wellick up in Minnesota, who has really helped. He's a leader in the Mankind Project, retired, and has really helped us think through involving and sharing this work with First Nations, because he's been doing a lot of that work. And then my friend Sarah Eunice, who is the president of the Egyptian American Society of the Bay Area, has a great like kind of facilitative mindset, is a mother herself, as is Anita. Brings a lot of like kind of, I would call it like cheerleader energy, like get people into the room kind of energy. And I'm hoping to add more folks, because we're all volunteers, and we'll have this crowdfunding campaign that'll come up soon that'll allow people to participate in various levels. Of course, they're welcome to come on the pilgrimage with us and come to the Mothers Constitutional Convention. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was going to be my next question. Like, what's going to happen next, and where do you need help, and how can people get involved, and all that good stuff?
So we will have a crowdfunding campaign that will launch soon. I believe probably mid-March, so that's a couple weeks from now. And it'll run for a month, and then it'll end in April, and that will determine kind of like the scope and scale and how much like resources we have for video, for lodging, all that kind of stuff. So if you want to see a new vision of America emerge, if you want to follow the journey and just want to support, something positive and good that's non-reactive. Like, we're not reacting to the headlines. We're saying this covenant is broken. We need a new one. Let's summon that. Let's discuss that together. Yeah, that's the invitation. Be a part of it.
Yeah. Okay. So then also the invitation. So who should sign up? Who should join? Who should be like, oh, I should go on that road trip. I should be at that convention. Who hearing that should sign themselves up for this?
Well, the important thing to remember about a pilgrimage is that it doesn't work for your life. Nobody's got a life that's like, oh, I got this giant space in the center for a pilgrimage.
Yeah.
So you should feel the call deep down. Like this country has given me so much, and now it is asking for my help. Especially the most vulnerable are asking, they need our help. If you're in a position of privilege, and I know, 3/4 of us are paycheck to paycheck, right? But if you're in a position where you can be like, I was going to quit anyways, or just retire 6 months early, or you just got laid off, come make this happen. Yeah. So it's basically folks who feel a call, who feel heartbroken by how things are at. And they're like, I want to do something that's not just protesting and voting and calling my senators that aren't going to do anything anyways.
Yeah. And then, as far as the experience, I read on the website you talked about you're going to visit all these historical sites in America, but it sounds like there's more to that too. It's going to be a very kind of communal experience amongst the people that participate, right? Can you sell us a bit on the experience?
Without kind of being overly prescriptive, we're going to create space for deep connection. So the opportunity to check in each morning, each evening with each other, envision like at a campsite sitting around a fire, cooking breakfast for each other, practicing some yoga, going into town to a farmer's market or a local diner. But the idea is that, yes, we're going to be connecting a lot together, but we're also going to be connecting with other people that we meet along the way. So there'll be folks in campsites who would be like, what's up with the pilgrimage flag? Like, well, we're going on a pilgrimage. Cancel your plans. You're coming with us. But yeah, the idea is that we are going to be in these deeper questions together. And then letting the land and the places and these anniversaries kind of teach us and inform us about who we are and what we owe each other. So you should leave with a deeper connection to yourself, to your fellow pilgrims, but also to like the purpose of the United States and the beautiful and tragic journey that we have ahead of us. So it's basically going to be meeting reality full frontal, face on.
Yeah.
Not a sanitized corporate propaganda version of it.
Okay. Well, it feels like a good place to kind of wrap things up. Is there anything else you want to add, or tell us how people can learn more? And
so go to nationalpilgrimage.us, and we'll make sure that there's a link in there. And then as soon as I have the Indiegogo campaign, we'll get that in the show notes too. But yeah, that's where you can find out more about it. And if you want to read Bison Medicine, you can download copies for free at bisonmedicine.com. You can listen to the book for free. I read the book on YouTube. Or if you want to give Jeff Bezos some money, you can get it on Amazon.
Well, yeah, and we'll put all the links to all this in the show notes and everywhere else too. So, well, cool, man. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this. And I'm super intrigued by this road trip. I mean,
come.
See, I read about it about 36 hours ago, and I'm like, oh, wow, that sounds interesting.
Dude.
I love road trips. Well, it's like you said, pilgrimages don't always work out easily in your life.
Nope. Yeah, that makes
so
space.
the life I have plotted out for the next year or so, I'm also in that 3/4 of Americans paycheck to paycheck at the moment. So there's some challenges involved, but I am intrigued. So I don't know, maybe.
Well, my hope is that the crowdfunding campaign allows us to sponsor a bunch of pilgrims and a bunch of moms. But there's also the opportunity to that we'll create among people who are interested to create a GoFundMe so their community can be with them on the journey. So you'd be like, hey, I need $3,500 to go on this pilgrimage. I'll tell you all about it.
Nominate someone from a community or somebody that can nominate themselves. Be like, help me.
Or you just put up a GoFundMe like, I'm going on this pilgrimage. I need your help.
Okay. I mean, it sounds amazing. I think I'm a little focused in my attention on the community building right here in this part of San Diego I'm in. I feel like that's kind of what's calling me right now. But
It's okay. I mean, it's not like the nation needs you.
Well, yeah, if you do pilgrims on the 251st year, that might be better timing. Just the 250th anniversary. It's just not, it's not lining up. But
yeah. I mean, next year we'll do it. We'll have glamping options. It'll be like Burning Man.
I need none of that. I am like so easy. I will camp anywhere with like so little stuff. So that part at least I'd be fine with. All right. Well, man, thank you so much for joining on the podcast, Brandon. And we'll put everything in the show notes, and hopefully, yes, people listen and sign up for this pilgrimage or like the convention or all of the above. Cause sounds amazing. And it's just such a cool idea. And again, I love that you're like just thinking on this level, because that's always my thing too. It's just like think bigger than our day-to-day lives. Like, what is this sort of big picture that we're all living in, and how do we have some influence and weight and agency in that regard? So it's amazing.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much for Brandon for joining me for this conversation. I just really loved the ambition that he's bringing to these projects that he's doing right now, being willing to think big about it. And I'm just very, very curious, very intrigued to see where this goes. I am tempted to join that pilgrimage. I'm tempted, but I don't think it's going to work out for me. Not this year. If he does it again for the 251st anniversary, I'm going to have to think about it. But if you listen to this and you feel like compelled to join that pilgrimage or attend the Mothers Constitutional Convention, I personally vouch for Brandon. I think you would have a great time. I think you should go for it. So that is my personal endorsement there for you. And I've got all the links to everything that he talked about. It's going to be all in the show notes. Check out his book, sign up for his Substack, and maybe contribute to that GoFundMe. The link might not be there right when the episode drops, but if you're watching this about a week or two later, it might be there. And if you enjoyed this episode of Braver New Worlds, please consider subscribing to the podcast and forwarding this to somebody else who you think would enjoy it or appreciate it, somebody that might want to go on that pilgrimage. Or maybe if they live in one of those spots where the pilgrimage will be going through, you could have them stop by and say hello. Or invite them over for dinner or tea. All the links, everything is in the show notes. The map for where they're going on the journey is on the website for the National Pilgrimage, so you can look it up that way. And thanks so much for listening. Really appreciate it. And keep telling a braver new story for yourself and the world around us. See you next week.